Hello there. Good evening and welcome into the April Summit. It is good to be here. This is part of the Esports Leadership Series. Thank you all so much for joining. My name is Adam Savage. It is good to be back. I'm feeling great. I hope you guys are too. A bit about myself. I've worked in esports very fortunately now for the last 6 years or so. Had some great opportunities from hosting giant arenas like the Blast Pro Series. I miss arenas so much. They're going to come back one day. Live audiences, they're coming. But things like that, opportunities like that, all over the world. I've been lucky to travel with esports as well. Hosting the Esports Awards as well, which has been amazing. Part of the team there as well. And at the moment, I'm currently an analyst on FNCS, the Fortnite Championship Series, work with Twitch rivals, amongst other things as well. So I'm very, very, very lucky to be here. And thank you guys for joining us as well. We've got some great people on the panel this evening. We're excited to bring you this webinar, curated by the Esports Awards team. We have speakers spanning all breadths of the esports industry as well joining us today. He'll be introduced shortly. But before we begin, I would like to invite Mike Ashford, Managing Director of the Esports Awards, to kick off the proceedings.
Thank you, Adam. Brilliant to have you back today. We always appreciate you hosting for us, and welcome to everyone watching at home and joining us on YouTube. I'm very happy to say hello and welcome to the fourth event we've held this year as part of the Esports Leadership Series presented by the Esports Awards. Tonight is an exciting event for us as we have some of the top brands in the industry represented, as well as some of our valued Esports Awards partners. So firstly, a special mention and a huge thank you to Mark Chang, Director of Gaming and Esports over at Verizon. Thank you for joining us today and for all of the support you've given the awards over the years. We're incredibly excited for what we'll be able to achieve alongside yourself this year and can't wait to showcase it. Tonight should give an insider view on how brands can create value in the industry from some of the best brands in the industry. Our speakers span the full breadth of the overall industry, from org representatives to some of the top sponsors, agencies, and data analysts in the field. Expect a well-rounded understanding on what makes a brand stand out and how to best maximize value in the industry. I'm sure there will be some invaluable information shared and encourage you all to take part, ask questions and participate as much as you can and take in the opportunity. I also want to give a very quick reminder, straight after tonight's event, we will be holding a networking session. The session will provide an opportunity to connect with other industry professionals in an informal setting with large-scale discussion and also smaller breakout rooms. I myself will be there and hope to meet as many of you as possible. I don't know if that's actually an encouragement for you to join, but the offer's there. The link is in the bio, so do head over once we finish up. And on that note, thank you again for tuning in. And without further ado, I'm going to hand back to the wonderful, the incredible Mr. Adam Savage to kick off tonight's proceedings. Thank you.
Oh, stop, Mike. Stop. You're too kind. I love that man. He deserves his own theme tune at this point. He's amazing. I need one of those cushions. Phenomenal. Thanks, Mike. I mean, what a great welcome to everybody here as well from him and the team. Now, tonight, as Mike was alluding to, there's going to be lots of things to talk about. This is going to be actually split up into two 30-minute panel discussions with a short 5-minute intermission. We all need a cup of tea, don't we? That has to happen. At any point, if you have any questions, please do write in the comments. We really want your input here. We'll try and get as many of those read out as possible, but you can see the comments there. Please do get them in. The team will share them with us, and hopefully we can read those out to our panel guests. That'd be really, really brilliant if you could do that. If you have any questions, do keep them related to the topic as well. That'd be really, really helpful. But what we're talking about, that'd be great. We anticipate this webinar is going to be roughly around an hour and 30 minutes. And as Mike mentioned, there will be a networking session after the summit with speakers and other industry professionals on the Zoom call as well. These prove extremely valuable. We've done a couple of these now. These actually are really valuable, the networking sessions. In making connections, growing your connection base and meeting new people in the same space who kind of work in a different place, but are all part of the esports world. It's been incredibly helpful to people. So do make sure to join. We encourage that hugely. The link is in the YouTube blog section, and we posted in the comments at the end as well. I'll be talking about that again and again and again to emphasize just how amazing the networking event is. It is time to meet our first panel of guests. We are delighted to be joined by 4 in our first panel. The very first one, I want to give a big welcome. Mike alluded to him in the chat there as well. We have Mark Chang, Director of Gaming and Esports at Verizon. Hello, Mark. How are you, sir?
Hey, Adam. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Good.
Pleasure. My first panel, but I'm excited to be here.
Hey, we want to start somewhere. It's good to have you here with us this evening. Obviously, you are the director of gaming and esports at Verizon. That is a big boots to fill. What exactly can you tell us about your role? How could you summarize what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I head up gaming and esports sponsorships at Verizon. So all the different partnerships that we have with our leagues, our teams, the different publishers, and that goes from marketing all the way through technical integrations and things like that. I'm actually relatively new to Verizon. I've only been here for about 6 months. Some of you may know me. I was previously at Intel, where I actually started and headed up gaming and esports for Intel as well. And subtle, humble flex. I've been fortunate enough to win 3 esports awards over here. There's only one of them there, but that's what I do in a nutshell.
You know what? I clocked that esport award straight away and immediately had envy, FOMO, everything. I mean, that's amazing. And it's great to have you here joining us this evening. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions coming your way as well, which is great as well. So thanks so much for being here, Mark. Next up, we have Dan Ciccone, founder and CEO at Stacked Entertainment. Dan, welcome in. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, where are you in the world? Is it New York? I can see behind you. Whereabouts are you?
Actually, that's a very, very old picture of Chicago, but I'm currently.
Oh, is it?
in
Okay.
Dallas. Yeah.
Amazing, close, very close. I say close. It's Chicago, New York, quite far away, but still close enough. It's a city. Tell us about Stacked Entertainment and your role as founder and CEO, Dan. What is your role involved?
Sure. So I personally have been involved in esports specifically for the last 10 years. Stacked Entertainment is a property and talent management agency solely dedicated to esports. So we rep some of the top properties and some of the top talent in the world. But in addition to that, we also work with brands, non-endemic as well as endemic, to help them create content, help them run programs, understand media, understand the landscape, which is a lot of what we'll be talking about today, and to help them just engage the audience in a meaningful way that they feel comfortable, and just kind of help them navigate the space.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to talking more about it later. Obviously, the last couple of years, it's been a very odd time in history with esports. Otherwise, we'll definitely touch on that later on as well. So it's great to have you here, Dan. Next up, we have Tricia Sugita, a CEO at FlyQuest Sports. Welcome in, Tricia. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. So happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. What can you tell us about FlyQuest Sports, Tricia?
Yeah, so a bit about me. I started my career in esports, competing and streaming StarCraft 2. I then moved on to do interviews and hosting major esports events, and eventually moved to a streaming platform called Azubu TV, where I was the global director of esports, and I was responsible for increasing our website traffic to over 12 million unique monthly visitors. From there, I moved on to Immortals and LA Valiant, heading up their partnerships, and now I have the absolute privilege to be CEO at FlyQuest, where we are hoping to build out a new kind of esports organization that reflects core values that we share of kindness, grace, and strength, and ultimately showcasing greatness, which is our mission.
Amazing. You should be co-hosting with me, Tricia. You know this amazing experience. We need to make this happen next time.
I couldn't. I'm rusty, and you're doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you very much. It's 5 minutes in. There's a long way to go yet, so I'm sure I'll make a few slip-ups. But thank you so much for being so kind. And great to have you here as well, Tricia. Lastly on our panel, last but by no means least, we have Johnny Kutnowski, who is Director of Product Management at Blinkfire Analytics, Inc. Johnny, good to have you here, sir. How are you? What can you tell us about your role at Blinkfire?
Well, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I lead everything that is product development related at Blinkfire. Blinkfire is a real-time sponsorship analytics platform. We analyze ROI using our patented computer vision and AI algorithms. But myself, I'm actually an engineer at the platform. Just it grew with it. The company is 7 years old. I've been here for 6.5, so I've been here from the start. And I'm just a big nerd and gamer, so I insisted a lot on how esports and analytics and real-time data is a beautiful synergy, and it flourished to be a really cool vertical within the company. I'm just excited to get the privilege to have the privilege to handle all of it, and totally excited to be here with such a great panel as well.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. When you were saying I was a gamer, a bit of a nerd, I was nodding. Yeah, I'm so part of that same club. I am so in the club with you, my friend.
I mean, it was Sleep or World of Warcraft. So
was it?
and
Okay.
you know why that's so.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for the introductions and for being here this evening as well. Obviously, we're talking about brands in esports 2021. I'm going to open with a very broad question. I think it'd be quite nice, actually, if everyone got a chance to kind of give us their insight as well. I'll kick off with this question, which is, who are the esports audience in 2021? It couldn't be a more open question. Lots of room to chat about it. I'll kick off with Mark there from Verizon. Your time at Intel, Verizon now. Who are the esports audience in 2021?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I'm going to give this a little bit of a tech nerd slash mobile slash all the stuff that I've done over the last 12 years. It's all rolled into one. I'll try to answer this with a forward-looking lens. I think with the rise of competitive mobile gaming, it's really democratizing esports in a way that we've never really been able to see before, right? So this actually puts esports in a much more accessible way than before. So if you're playing, if you're watching, pretty much across the board. And I think one thing to mention, right, is that esports, sometimes we just look at the big stadium type things. Johnny and I were geeking out about IEM before this, and it's like, that's not just esports, right? Esports is all levels of competitive play. Right. And I think mobile gaming and mobile competitive is a way that it's really just going to blow this out, democratize esports, and make it really accessible pretty much for anybody, anywhere. So I think that is something that's really unique for that audience for 21 and beyond.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Actually, I think we actually on the last panel I was part of, we discussed mobile gaming a lot actually as well. And you see games now like PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, PUBG Mobile. You see like Call of Duty Mobile. You see Wild Rift. The user base alone is on a different level. Like, it's absolutely huge. You're absolutely right there. So I think that's spot on. Let's come across to Dan as well. Same question to you. Like, what's your feeling on the esports audience in 2021?
Yeah, well, look, I think it's super important that we first just remind ourselves of the fact that the gaming audience and the esports audience, that there is a definite difference between the audiences. I think one of the challenges within this space is that we all love big numbers, but more times than not, esports and gaming get to be somewhat conflated in the way the terms are used. And people tend to look at gaming audiences, right? And they're like, well, the average gamer is 35, 40 years old. And then they think that equates over to esports. I just wanted to clarify that is absolutely not the case, that the audience should keep in mind that there's a distinct difference between the esports audience, the esports enthusiast, if you will, and a gaming enthusiast. Outside of that, though, I mean, you can generalize that it's a fairly young audience. But the other thing that I would remind the audience is, when we talk about esports, we tend to use it in a very general term. Just as there is sports, hockey, the audience is much different than football. It's different than baseball. It's different than soccer. We need to remind ourselves that when you look at the esports audience, the behavioral differences and some of the demographic differences are going to be different between, individuals or groups that tend to follow Call of Duty versus a StarCraft.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're. With regards to the age side of things as well, like, we look at like some, the Fortnite World Cup and some of the big players are 12 years old. They're competing at that level. That's how young a lot of the gaming audience are now. It's not just that kind of 30 to 40 demographic as you mentioned there as well. So I'm with you 100%. I'm obviously keen to hear what Tricia's feelings are as well. Obviously, you've kind of worked across a whole different array of places within the esports world. What's your feeling on the esports audience in 2021?
All right, great question. I think similarly to Dan, I feel the same way. Gaming is very different than esports, and that includes the audience. And within esports, as we mentioned, like, sports is different, right? You can't say like, I'm a sports fan, but suddenly a football player or football fan is going to understand what a basketball fan likes. Sorry, my voice is cracking. So
nice. That sounds fun.
I guess I got too excited to talk about basketball and football. It's been a minute, and I made it to playoffs in my fantasy. So, all right.
Congratulations!
Thank you. So speaking about that, yeah, the audience, I think what we can think about is it's really broad. It can range from anywhere. I don't think we're just at a set demographic or bracket. I think we can generalize and look at different esports titles and have a general demographic for that, whether it be age or more female to male ratio, etc. But I think it's first, if you're trying to look at how you should approach esports and as a brand, you should first look at what is your goal and target, and then maybe there from narrow down the esport that you're focused on.
Excellent. Yeah,
I think actually, and if I can just jump in, I know my turn is next, but I totally agree with everything that my colleagues here at the panel just said. Because but having clarified that gaming isn't esports, they're not. I mean, there's overlap, right? But they're not the same. I think besides defining the actual demographic or profile of the audience, it's also an attitude kind of thing, and we're seeing a lot of new fans that choose esports over traditional sports, and I think that is fascinating. Like that kind of shift in mindset is really, really interesting, because they choose to focus on sports. I'm going to call it sports. I know that debate is really old. They focus on sports and entertainment content of things that they can also replicate, right? So I can watch a basketball game, and I love basketball. I know someone already complained about the Knicks finger, the foam finger. I apologize, but I can watch a basketball game, but I'm not gonna play afterwards because I'm just stuck at home. Whereas I can watch like this CDL final, or I can watch any game and then play it online at home, and that makes me feel so connected with that. And I can watch my favorite pros play online, and then go and try to recreate their strategies. And I think that kind of connection with the audience, with the fan, it's much closer. And we've talked about the demographic approach of it, and I really like to highlight that attitude kind of thing, because that makes a world of a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely does. I was going to say, I mean, you're being a Knicks fan, Dan. Are you a Bulls fan? Is that a thing? Being in Chicago?
Yeah. But I originally grew up in New York, so I'm not a big Knicks fan, but I'll stay with the Bulls.
Okay. I mean, it's great to have your points around the kind of the demographics, the sport. I mean, there definitely is like a correlation between kind of traditional mainstream sports and esports, as well as you said, like the age old debate there, Johnny. But from a branding standpoint as well. I mean, creatively, what with gaming and what you have opportunities to do with it from a branding standpoint, is it, can you break outside of that mold of traditional sports and the way that they kind of tend to do their branding and is there more opportunity to be more creative? I'll go to you there, Mark.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And in fact, I feel like, I don't know, maybe because I've been in this space for so long, it's been like 12 years, that I'm a little bit tired, I think, of the esports and sports, debate. I think, sports lives as sports, esports lives as esports. Just because the names, sound the same, doesn't mean that they're the same animal, right? I think we just talked about that. And so I think being creative, absolutely. But I think there's a really unique approach with this audience, or audiences, right? I think Tricia really talked about the different audiences, which I completely agree on. Is, with this audience, you don't just come and do big flashy things, right? It's a combination of the big moments, like we did at the Super Bowl this year with our Fortnite stadium, where it was just it was a cool cultural moment, right? So that's important, but really being engaged with the audiences and the communities on a day-to-day basis, that's really unique to this, to this community, or these communities, that I think a lot of times traditional sports marketing doesn't really go as deep or stay as connected as frequently as these communities.
Yeah,
it's about creating like a long-standing relationship with the audience, right? So brands, like I see it as a fan, when you go in and someone just throws ads at me. It doesn't really create a connection. But when I see cool integrations into the content, activations with the players, really creating content that appeals to me as a fan, I end up like favoring that brand. I end up actually preferring that brand, or just seeing it with more positive eyes than maybe I've seen before. So it is really creating that kind of connection, and the opportunity in esports. I also think we're much more prone to humor. I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm with you 100%.
mean, I feel kind of bad saying that, because it's not like that traditional sports are too serious, but there's like, we're very much open to being silly, being goofy, and creating some more internet age content, which is, I personally just really like it. I just enjoy it all day.
Yeah. I mean, from a talent perspective, who kind of works kind of on a desk or kind of part of the lineup when it comes to the broadcast side of things, even small things now I'm seeing kind of changes in the way in which, even like for such a long time, that traditional broadcast, as you mentioned, sports, you see all the people wearing the kind of like the suit jackets, kind of wearing very smart, very kind of like, as you would see on a professional, kind of sports football weekend or whatever. Now it's kind of changing. I think gaming is like, hey, we're actually quite casual. And this is like, and cool. This is a very different world. And you're starting to see a change now, and even stylistically, the way that people are dressed and the way that they're kind of like approaching it, because it's not quite as, I think you're not kind of like stuck, like to that traditional sports anymore. It is something completely different, really. I mean, Dan, with from a campaign standpoint, I've seen you guys have worked with the likes of, I think Turtle Beach and other brands as well, like this. Is there any kind of campaigns that you've worked on in particular that kind of stand out to you that were particularly good from a branding perspective, that you thought really resonated with the gaming audience in the esports world?
So all of them.
Obviously, yeah.
But look, I mean, instead of addressing like one specific campaign, and honestly, like I could, as much as I would love to plug a lot of the work that we've done, one of the things that I just wanted to backtrack a little bit is one of the areas where I think the esports industry in general does itself a disservice, and gaming is included in this, is we tend to say, the audience is really going to be very vocal and a backlash if they don't like the way that something is presented, if they don't like the way that they're being engaged. I just wanted to be super careful, because the reality is that's pretty much true of anyone between 18 and 30 years of age. It's not just specific to esports and gaming. Quite frankly, I don't know why we tend to focus on that within this industry, because again, I think it does us a disservice. That being said, I also think there's a ton of huge opportunity. For a lot of brands that are learning about the space, the organization, the presentation of a broadcast, I think is fantastic, because it does fit somewhat of the traditional model. I think what a lot of brands don't understand is that esports in its modern presentation has really existed for about 15, 20 years, where I think agencies like my own, or people like myself, where we can help brands, is help them realize, like, look, even though you're seeing this really polished, cool thing in a broadcast, there's a lot going on within the scene that could really use a brand's help, right? That brand could actually bring a lot of value. When you go to, a tournament, it typically takes place over 2 or 3 times. There's a lot of downtime during a tournament, whether it's within the broadcast itself or it's at the venue. So there are all these terrific ways for brands to engage, not only within the broadcast itself, but at the venue itself. And I would just leave it, my comment at that. Any brand manager, any CMO, anyone who's on the brand side, whether it's an agency or the brand, if you have not been to an event, I know it's been difficult, obviously, for the last year, but I would encourage everyone to actually go to an event and hang out for a couple of days, and it gives you a totally different perspective on the audience as well as the industry.
Yeah, I think, Dan, you really nailed it when you said the word value, right? Like brand and value. So coming from the brand side, I think it's really important to really have an ethos where you act to deliver more value than you act to extract value, right? So if you are coming in as a brand, and I'm not trying to be preachy or anything like that, just making all the mistakes from the brand side and learn and taking the lumps, is that you really got to come in and deliver the value to the communities versus coming in and trying to, from day one, extract value. I think that's a really key paradigm and mindset to have in order to be successful and to have longevity within the communities.
Sure. Yeah, I completely. I mean, you're right, Val. There is a lot of. I think longevity is really key. And I completely agree with Dan. Like, to not go to a live event and see, like, be there with the fans and the players and be in that atmosphere. It gives you such a different perspective. And I'm very fortunate. I've been in those situations, and you kind of think, wow, you know what? Like the Blast Pro Series, we had 12,500 people going crazy in Denmark. And you think that the scale now, the fan bases, are, just like traditional sports, are ever growing in the esports space as well, which is amazing. I mean, I guess another question is, how do we define that value within the esports industry? Tricia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I was excited to talk about this because there's a lot to say here. So first, as we mentioned, again, thinking from the brand perspective, when you're looking at esports, an easy way to define things is like, I think we make a lot of comparisons with traditional sports because it's an easy analogy for people to grasp. It's much easier to say as an esports organization, for example, I usually say, like, I'm like the Lakers, but pretend if the Lakers had a football team, a soccer team, a hockey team, etc. Of course, I'm going to say Lakers because we mentioned Nick, so we got to represent. I'm from LA. Yeah, that's why we make some of those parallels. At the same time, we try to make it easier to speak about in panels like this when we talk about demographics and different demographics within the different sports or esports, right? Just like different fans have different interests. And I think it's simple as that. If we break it down, let's just make this simple, is that people are unique. And if they're interested in one sport, while they may be interested and have overlap in the other sports, they are unique. There's a reason why that is their favorite esport title, for example. One thing that is very different from traditional sports than esports that I think is often overlooked and why some teams struggle to create brand differentiation or create brand equity is that in traditional sports, you have geolocation. And geolocation is somewhat a crutch to the brand. So I'm from LA and I like Lakers, and that's why I'm obviously a Lakers fan. Even being a Lakers fan for all of my life, except when Jordan played on the Bulls. So shout out to Dan. I also have a special place for the Bulls and Rockets for Olajuwon. Anyways, too much basketball talk. Usually you're a fan because you're from that city, right? So Milwaukee Bucks, you are probably from the Midwest. So you're a diehard Milwaukee Bucks fan. At FlyQuest, one of the solutions we tried to solve for, or problems we tried to solve for, was how do we create brand equity? And that's very difficult as an esport because while you have many benefits being a global sport and you can reach a very broad audience, how do you differentiate yourself at being one of the 10 teams, for example, in LCS as FlyQuest? And so what we first did before we started any marketing campaign, before we said what our brand was, we created our company vision. And our company vision at FlyQuest is showcase greatness. And that is the belief that greatness already exists within everyone. And we want to help them find and showcase it. And the reason why it's really important to have that vision first is because that is our North Star, and everything that we do will always tie back to that purpose and vision. So for example, we created a Go Green initiative, which is, we want to help save the planet essentially, and we wanted to invite everyone to join in on that. And because of our Go Green initiative, we created several campaigns: Tree Quest, Sea Quest, World Quest, we did Bee Quest, and essentially we planted over 10,000 trees. We raised over $16,000 for the coral reefs. We did a lot of things that you don't normally see from an esports team. And a lot of people are like, why are you doing this? It's because we want to create a brand and stand for something more than just our competitive success. Obviously, competitive success is very important to us. It's what we do. It is our product. But I think oftentimes too many brands come in and just come out with their product differentiation, which again is very important, but it is not a true differentiator in your brand. And so to establish that vision and to have values is super important, I think. It's just one thing I wanted to highlight. And such an honor and like a a nice problem to solve in esports because it's limitless. Like before FlyQuest, no one tied competitive success to environmental issues or planting trees, and that's what we did. We tied competitive success to our marketing and made it more interesting. And hopefully, if you're a fan of saving the planet or bees, and trees and the other things that we're doing, we created like floral jerseys and things that even our players were like, "What the heck is that, Tricia?" And I was like, "Yo, trust. Like, here's why we're doing it." Everyone got excited, and they're like, "Whoa, I love FlyQuest merch because it's like it has bees, it's so cute, and it's like wholesome, it has flowers." And you got to be bold, as Dan was saying. Like, you're gonna make mistakes. Too often, people I think gatekeep with like authenticity and being afraid. Like, you got to provide value, like Mark said, and esports, you can be so creative with that because your audience is limitless. Sorry, I get really passionate about this because
But that's awesome. That was awesome.
That's really good. That's really good. What was your thoughts, Johnny? I mean, how would you define value within esports in the industry right now?
Well, I actually said it already, like in the backstage and in my my presentation. I'm a nerd, so I really love data. Like I live for data. I mean, and that's what we do at Blinkfire Analytics, right? So we look and live for data. Look at and live for data. So the way we analyze value and the way we look at value is with a qualitative analysis also, right? So a lot of rights holders struggle to provide value or justify the value that they're giving to their partners, and many times they also find themselves in a situation where they need to educate their partners because they come into esports. They may be a long-standing brand in esports, but may not be accustomed to like advanced KPIs or like I don't know, audience metrics that span like different sources. And on us, like our responsibility, and I take this very seriously. It's like we want to create a better industry, and I love the industry as it is, but we can always do better, right? We can always just be more professional. And and the way I see it personally in creating value, not necessarily for the brands, because we ourselves, like, we work with brands and we help brands see their ROI for their sponsorships and even find out who to sponsor next, like, or scout. That's something we're very passionate about. But it's mostly creating a robust infrastructure and creating KPIs that span all properties, and I can like compare things apples to apples, and that's how I see value, because you're making the market more accessible. You're making the organizations more accessible, and everyone is more transparent because, hey, I have this information. This is what I am. Like, I'm not gonna like round up the numbers or anything. This is what I am. This is how much I can give you. It's all coming in real time as well, which is fantastic. But that's pretty much how I see, like, giving value to the industry by making it more just nice to work in, and more transparent. I love transparency about that. Like, that's my personal opinion and my mission, really.
That's great. What are your thoughts, Mark? What are your thoughts on the value in the esports industry?
Yeah. So first of all, I couldn't agree more with Johnny on the transparency and the quant being very, very valuable for brands. I'm going to say a couple of things that haven't been said before, because otherwise I'll just be repeating all the great things that have been said. I think I'm going to leave with maybe 2 points for brands that are either in the space or getting into space. I think for value, in order to both deliver and get value within esports, you have to own your own space. You can't just come in and be like, label slap, logos here, like 45 degrees. Like, that's not going to get you anything, right? I think most people understand that by now. But you have to really own your space and become indispensable, right? What happens if your brand exits the space? How does that affect the ecosystem? How does that affect, the fan experience or the game experience, right? Like, if you can answer that, then you probably have your spot. You probably have a place where you're adding value. And when you do come in and when you do add on, how are you making that experience so much better, right? So like when I was working on bringing esports to the Olympics, that was actually a big DE&I play where anybody from anywhere could be a champion, right? Like those are the things where you're doing things that have never been done before. And I'll keep the last one very brief, which is if you're going to come in this space, and this, not to sound territorial, come and stay or don't come at all, right? Like I think I'm going to challenge brands like that, that boldly to say, hey, have a plan to be here, or kind of don't, right? One of the things is, in my previous role, I would tell my execs, I would say, hey, don't give me 1 year of funding if you're not going to give me the next 2 or 3 years of funding, right? Like it's better not to do it in the first place.
At least you're getting a year. What so,
Yeah.
And look, so
don't give
Mark,
me funding for Saturday and Sunday if you can't give it to me for next month.
Yeah, no, look, Mark, I apologize for interrupting, but
no, go ahead.
I think one of the biggest frustrations that I felt over the last few years is we'll have brand clients come to us and they say one of two things. They either say, what's the biggest event in esports? We want to do that, right? And I'm like, you probably don't. Let's back up and a little bit and take a look at this. But the other frustration, which gets to what Mark is talking about, is we'll have brands or agencies, they'll come to us and they'll say, well, we want to run a test, right? And I'm like, well, no one calls up, being that we're on the basketball kick, right, the LA Lakers, and says, hey, I want to sponsor your team for 3 games and see what happens. So, I think Mark hits on a really important fact that you need to come in with a plan. And look, there are plenty of us in the industry who would love to work on that with you. But, when we talk about adding value, when we talk about bringing value to space and doing cool things, there are very few brand personalities out there who can come in, just kind of, have a quick hit and get out. But you really should have a plan to stay for a while. Even though I was preaching earlier that esports in its modern form has been around 15, 20 years, there are still a lot of learnings that are left and a lot of value that can still be supported within the industry. So, Mark, again, I apologize, but it's just when you said, hey, if you're going to come in, you should stick around for a while. It's really bad noise.
Pull up a chair, stick around.
Yeah.
Great to have you.
Don't dabble, stick around.
Yeah, stick
That's
around.
the motto from this.
So, well, look, you know what? We've seen some brands that kind of dipped in, right? And it gets back to the conversation we had earlier where the fans were kind of vocal. They were like, that really wasn't cool, or I didn't like that. But there are certain brands that they stuck it out. They listened to the audience. They actually engaged the audience instead of running the other way or doing a mea culpa. They were like, all right, cool. Well, we're listening to you guys. Let's, we're going to figure this out. So, even though the demographic, because again, I don't want to put it all on the esports or gaming industry, but even though the demographic's going to be more vocal about what they don't like, I would also say that they're pretty forgiving. And if you're willing to, stay in the fight, they're going to step alongside you and help you out.
Yeah.
And also very passionate about what they do love, right? Which is, we're just very passionate. In general, I would say if I don't like it, I might say it. I might not say anything and ignore it, but if you love it, you're going to say it as well. And I think that's really cool because, it's definitely not an esports alone thing. I absolutely agree with Dan. That's a really good point to make. But it is the ambient, like the space, because you are on social media, immediate messaging. That kind of feedback is what allows for that kind of communication. And granted, all sports are now on social media, right? So don't get me wrong, and we can say great things or bad things about anyone in sports or esports, but it's just a lot of passion for sure at this demographic and this kind of medium, I would say.
Do you? Come back to your I know, fantastic points. Thank you. That's really insightful. And it's great to have such a varied panel of guests as well with different insights. Amazing. Tricia, you talked earlier on about FlyQuest and what you guys do there, and I was thinking about the responsibility almost of players now when it comes to with brand opportunities and whatnot. And players, obviously, look at the kind of the gamer base today and people who are kind of in the esports world or viewers or the kind of who are playing games. is there a responsibility from the talent that people work with now as well, because they are role models to a lot of people as well? Is there a responsibility to promote these kind of greener ways of life that you mentioned, and to encourage better living as well from a I guess a player to consumer standpoint?
Personally, I strongly believe that's a yes. So, and I think from the esports organizations as well. So at the end of the day, I didn't want to just be an esports organization. I know everybody says this, but we really wanted to have a call to action and challenge people and really be a platform to help others. So again, our vision is to showcase greatness, and the Go Green initiative got kicked off because that is our way that we decided to showcase greatness. We were trying to lead by example, and that's why you have many quests. Right now, we are showcasing greatness by doing Me Quests. This is our mental health quest that we did in partnership with Voyboy. Voyboy is our content creator, and if you know Voyboy's brand, if you know FlyQuest, it makes perfect sense why we partnered up. Him and I have gone way back since like 2012 or something. There's like times when I'm interviewing him at IPL, but it's all about mental health and resetting. And one thing that I challenge the players very often is, let's be bigger than esports. Again, we're on this basketball kick, so bigger than basketball. The basketball players that I admire aren't just champions because they have a ring or they do awesome on the court, but they are good people and they are using their clout, their influence to be responsible. And that is our goal. I think if you want to be a truly great player, that doesn't mean you just win championships. That means you do something with that. And at that same token, at FlyQuest, we have this privilege of being an LCS team, and we are a franchise. And so with that, what we hope to do with our organization and our resources on a bigger scale and with our players is to influence people and be just challenging people to showcase greatness in everything they do. And that involves being kind, because I don't think kindness is not boring, and that's confused with that. Being vulnerable, which is actually strong, and that means talking about our flaws and things that we can improve on. So one thing I'm really transparent on is, FlyQuest had a really cringe-like level social media like before 2020. We popped off in 2020, but pre-2020, my goodness, FlyQuest was like a walking billboard. That is how you do not do branding. So you can learn from us by how you not do it. And then in 2020, I came in and I was like, we need a hard reset. And actually what Dan was saying, again, we keep agreeing with everyone on this panel, but you got to own it. Like, you really have to own it. And that means, and Mark said, you can't just like dip your toes and then be like, oh, I don't want to jump in. You just got to dive in and own it. And that means for FlyQuest, when we decided to have the company vision of showcasing greatness, that means everything we do has to tie back to that. That means the partners that we partner with, right? Brands, the players that we sign, we make sure that they're good people and wholesome, not just skillful. And it makes things simpler, but not easier, right? It's sometimes hard to say no to a big fat check, bluntly, if it doesn't make sense for your brand. And that means through and through. So every graphic, like I said, our merch, our jerseys, if you look, there's floral design, there's bees, because that is showcasing greatness by our Go Green initiative. You can't half-ass things, basically. We can't say we're doing this and then planting 10,000 trees and then our jersey looks like bold and like we're all savage on our social. Like, everything has to be consistent through and through. So we're like the wholesome good guys. That was our goal. We wanted to be wholesome, and we make sure that we prep our players. They understand the why, and then they can share in their own words why we're doing stuff. So sometimes, like last year, it translated to, excuse my language, but Wild Turtle was like, we're going green, beep, on his interview. And like that is a product of making sure that we share and align internally first before we launch anything.
Yeah, so superb. And I think even the chat here has been brilliant the entire time. I think that one last comment says, esports is like a swimming pool. You don't go there just to dip your toe in, which I think is a great thing we all take away from this. And this great panel. Guys, we've been chatting for a long time, and that brings this panel sadly to a close. It's gone so quickly. But I want to thank all of you so much for being here. Thanks to Mark Chang, Director of Gaming and Esports at Verizon, Dan Ciccone, Founder and CEO at Stacked Entertainment, Tricia Sugita, CEO at FlyQuest Sports, and Johnny Kutnowski, Director of Product Management, Blinkfire Analytics, Inc. Thank you guys so much. All your details as well, for you guys watching, all the details of our panel are in the chat as well. So make sure to go follow these wonderful people and find out about what they do. And you can learn more about this incredible business as well, the wonderful world of esports. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you guys all so much. thank you for joining us, our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we're back in just 5 minutes, a short break. We're going to fit things over and have a new panel joining us in just a few minutes' time. So go grab that cuppa, go and relax for a few minutes, come back and see us again. We're joined by a brand new panel. So all about brands in esports. We'll see you in just a few. Hi there, welcome back to the April Summit here at the Esports Leadership Series. I was just really enjoying the music there. It's very calming. Like I was at some kind of lovely spa somewhere, exotic. Wow, loved it. Welcome back in. We've had a great evening so far. We've had some fantastic panel guests in our first panel, and all the networking details of the networking session that's coming later on. Those wonderful people will be there. That's all coming your way later on. We'll tell you more about that. Make sure to stick around for the networking session later. Really, really important. Today's all about brands in esports. That's what we're talking about here on the show. And we're delighted to welcome in our next panel. We have 4 new guests joining us here for a lot of wonderful conversation about brands in esports. And make sure as well to get comments in and questions, if you can do, into the chat as well. I'll try and read some of those out for the course of this. Joining us first up on panel number 2, we have Greg Skasko, CEO of Abacus 3. Greg, how are you, sir?
Good, Adam. How are you today?
I'm feeling great. Thank you very much. I mean, it's great to have you here. What can you tell us about Abacus 3 and your role there?
Sure. So Abacus 3, we're based in Dallas, Texas. Like Dan before, we're all vaccinated here. So Dan and I are about to go out to a very crowded pub to have a pint here a little bit. But Abacus 3 is an esports sales and sponsorship consultancy. So we represent a lot of the esports rights holders and introduce them into the non-endemic. So the majority of my team are from the non-endemic space. In fact, I was on the buy side for AT&T for a number of years, and there was not really a brand traditional sports team or anything else that we hadn't really had a relationship with. So a lot of what we do is get the brand comfortable with investments in esports, and that really happens up all along the leadership chain within the brand side. So a lot of what we do is really contributing to the growth of esports, because those non-endemic dollars are vital to the strategic plans of our esports partners.
Excellent. I can see you're a huge sports fan. I can see American football. Is that a helmet behind you as well?
That's a helmet right there, and an announcement of my daughter that the Cubs put up. So had a number of relationships over the years that I'm very proud of. Yeah,
that's amazing. And a pint in a pub sounds fantastic as well.
Sounds old-fashioned, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Oh, man. Oh, how I can't wait to go to a pub soon. It's coming in the UK. It's coming. It's going to happen soon. Thanks, Greg. That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. We've also got Nicola Piggott, founder and co-CEO of The Story Mob. Nicola, welcome to the summit. How are you?
I'm good, Adam. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Do I detect an English accent as well?
Mm-hmm. Yep, London girl. Live in LA, but London born and bred.
I bet you miss home.
I do. Sure. Well, I haven't been home for a year and a half at this point, during which time I've had a baby. So it's
congratulations. Me too.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird year to not be able to see family as much as you'd like. So I'm really hoping we're in the process of booking flights right now to make it home over the summer.
Again, it's coming, and come back when you can, of course.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. What can you tell us about the Story Mob and your role there, Nicola?
Yeah, Story Mob is a communications consultancy focused on gaming, digital culture. I founded it along with my co-founder Anna nearly 3 years ago, and now we're just north of 15 people spread across here in LA and Europe. We have a London office too. My background is I headed up esports communications at Riot Games for nearly 6 years. And the Story Mob was designed as a communications partner for the gaming industry, not just competitive, not just esports, but all things gaming culture. So we work with teams, Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses, FlyQuest, who Tricia did a smashing job on the last panel. We work with publishers, including Riot, Square Enix. We work with brands looking to get a foothold in the space or capitalize on an existing sponsorship. All manner of people who are looking for some communications muscle and how to speak accurately to gaming fans. So that's
amazing. Basically, so I mean, incredible roster of clients you work with there as well. I mean, Riot Games, the history there, that's really, really cool. I'm looking forward to learning more about Story Mob in a bit. Daniel Lopez joins us next, Director of Brand and Content at Guild Esports. How are you, Daniel? How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm really good. How are you doing?
They're doing good. Another Englishman, I take it, which is great.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg.
Outside, but yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, the Brits are taking over here, Greg. So sorry, my friend.
Yeah, I'm the only one. I'll hold strong.
Dan, it's great to have you here. What can you tell us about Guild Esports and your role there?
Well, if you don't know, we are the fastest growing and most exciting esports organisation on the planet right now. We've been around for less than a year, but our growth and our ambition is phenomenal. We field pro gaming teams in Fortnite, Valorant, Rocket League and FIFA. We also have an incredible roster of content creators, and we just continue to grow strength from strength, month on month.
Yeah, I got to say personally, I know some people in Guild Esports have seen it blow up socially as well. So it's been an amazing year. It's kind of gone really stratospheric very quickly. So yeah, we'll definitely talk more about that for sure as well. And we of course have another Englishman, Michael Ashford. Mike, Managing Director, Esports Awards. There he is. Look at that.
Look at those pillows.
I know. We're moving up in the world, right? If you survive a pandemic, they send you a pillow.
We're talking about brands here, branded up to the eyeballs. I love it, Mike. How are you, mate? How's things going?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, so I'm the product of a bet with our marketing team today. That's why I'm full kitting it. I won't say the next bit, but sort of John Terry-esque in the Champions League final. So you've got the trophy, the pillow, the hoodie, and the hat all at once, which we're very excited about. Our latest merch drop. We've just went through a pretty extensive rebrand over the last 3 or 4 months, trying to mature the brand a little bit, freshen things up, and probably lay to rest the first 5 years of building the Esports Awards as a concept. And now we're sort of evolving over the next 5 years. So we haven't had anything to really like market or promote off the back of the new brand. So we've literally today received our merchandise, and now I'm pretty sure I won't take it off for a few days.
I love it. It's great. I love the rebrand. I think it's really good, really strong. And the trophy.
We didn't pay him to say that. I promise.
Yeah, they definitely didn't pay me to say that. Just personal opinion. But it's really good to have you here as well, Mike. Thanks for having me here. Good to see you here as well. But we've got this great panel here of guests all about branding and esports. So I guess I'll kick off a chat here. So I loved all your insight here from each of our panel guests. First question being, more so than ever before, I mean, gaming culture is defined by brands creating authentic, strategic relationships. How do you ensure values match up? I'll go over to Greg first with that one.
Well, I think that what's important for the brand first is to be true to yourself. And as you search for a partner within esports, there's certainly some big heavy hitters, but there's not a match for everybody. And so I think that you need to be aware of who you are and what customer you're trying to reach and exactly what your message is going to be when you reach them. And then, from an esports perspective, if you're a team org or however you may be, include those brands if you find a partner in your strategic plans. So if you have a decision that you want to grow in some way, throw that out there. Let them contribute and let them use some of their talented teams, not only just their resources of dollars, but some of their technologies that might be possible, some of their resources they may have that will help you grow and reach your fans more effectively, but also do something similar to what Tricia was saying and something that might be important to your fans and give them an outlet, if that brand, an outlet to contribute to the community from that perspective. So I think that from that standpoint, it's a very candid conversation that needs to take place. I think in a lot of ways, from a brand perspective, they look at it, they want to check the box that we're in esports. And esports has the ability here to really do anything that normal traditional sports entertainment cannot do. They're much more confined to a market area. They're much more confined to certain logos and things they need to stay within and a lot of rules. Whereas if you partner with an esports organization, you really are defining whatever it is you want to do. And so I think having that conversation is really important for both sides as you start to unlock value for one another.
Yeah, the freedom can certainly unlock a lot more creativity, I think, as well, which is really important. Spot on there. I mean, from a communication standpoint as well there, Nicola, I mean, what are your thoughts on authentic strategic relationships and how you ensure those values match up?
I mean, it's always going to be a marriage of convenience, right? Because brands, much though they say they want to get into gaming and they want to be authentic and all this, what they want is to convert users into customers, right? That's their transactional goal. At the end of the day, there's creative ways to get there, but that's what they want. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's bad for the esports or the gaming space. That can be very lucrative, right? The goal is along that journey to nudge them into getting there by doing things that service the community at the same time. like whether that's contributing to a tournament series or sponsoring a player or a team or whatever, putting out original content that, you know, somehow brightens a gamer's day. Like, I think it's to do with feigning as much authenticity as possible in the early days until you get there organically. No brand is going to come into the space and immediately make themselves at home and know the lingo and know the, you know, the setups. It's just not possible. So a lot of the work that we do with brands revolves around telling them what, you know, to own up to what they don't know and to be willing to learn and to grow along with the community, to come in quiet and to, you know, and to get progressively louder. So yeah, I think it's a decent relationship. It's just, we just have to go into it realistically.
Yeah, it needs time to breathe, for sure. And I think, obviously, you know, Dan, I'll come to you next. You know, Guild Esports, as you mentioned yourself, you know, very, very young, the new kid on the block here. I mean, the first year, tell us all about your thoughts on what you've learned this past year and how you managed to ensure values are matching up from you guys and your organization standpoint.
Yeah, for us, I think one thing is, and it's been something that I've been a firm believer of and shouting from the rooftops for many years, is content is king in esports, and that's what it's all about, and that's what it comes down to. Gen Z, that's what they are consuming on every platform, whether that's esports or anything outside of that. So first and foremost, making sure that you get that right. And that's one thing that's been at the heart of what we've been doing is our content and making sure that we are engaging to a top tier level, raising the bar as well. That's another thing that we've really set out to do, and ensuring that we just better on everything that we do from one piece to another. And then when we look at brands and bringing them into the fold of that, we partner with HyperX, we partner with Subway. And what we have with that as well is a real trust element and a great open dialogue in creating that content, on bringing them on board into that space as well. So it's just been a great matchmaking process along the way in doing that, and it has been a huge success for us. So yeah.
With a year spent in isolation as well, almost, you know, with what's been happening the last kind of year, has it almost like, because you've had to grow online socially, because there hasn't been those kind of live events, has it been kind of almost for you guys creatively a great opportunity just to kind of make some great viral content, because you couldn't go to these things and you had to do things from being based back at home?
Yeah, I guess so. It has been, you know, tricky to work around, and COVID's caused it certain difficulties, and that has, you know, caused restrictions on the type of content that's been able to be made. But then we have been able to work around it in some ways and work to the laws and the regulations to ensure that certain things have been able to happen. But I think we've just been able to get around it and do what we've done. And, you know, we've already made some submissions for the Esports Awards. So I hope you see that in the inbox there, Mike. So you know, that's it already in the first year. We're coming after some of those. So, yeah.
I mean, Mike, from an Esports Awards standpoint, obviously couldn't have a live show last year. I'm hoping it happens this year. Tell us about your thoughts on ensuring values match with you guys working across, you know, all manner of things, from, you know, talent to brands to orgs and things. Like, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting one. I think the cool thing is there's a lot more to get involved in esports now than you traditionally see, where everything was sort of publisher, then team, and then sort of trickle down from there onwards. So there's a lot more expression from sponsors coming into the industry. I look at State Farm over with Riot and League of Legends, and some of the stuff that they were able to do from the analyst desk, but also like the hospitality tents as an extension you wouldn't necessarily see their brand with. Actually, they had the marketing dollars to do something for another segment within esports that sort of celebrates the industry, creates sort of fandom and everything within it, and adds an extension. I think things like that matter, because they're all things that drive us when we're allowed to go to physical events. You love walking past the cosplayers and seeing authentic representations of characters and all of those different elements that build the experience. I look at the tailgating in different events that were sort of coming in 2019, 2020, in the likes of COD and so on, and how you effectively and efficiently branded those and actually activated some of your partners alongside you, more so than just giveaways and sort of static backdrops with logos on. And I think for us, it's been a really cool thing about the awards is that every sponsor we bring on, we try and do so for an authentic reason and to tell a story. And Greg's someone that's really helped us with that, with the relationship with Lexus over the last couple of years, where year one, it was dipping the toes in for Lexus. It was understanding esports as an ecosystem and creating value. venue, and they really supported us, and they brought in some of the cars from the Marvel films, Black Panther, and one of their 10-year anniversary pieces, and they put them in our stadium. Like, they were in one of the rows within the stadium.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was such
That's
a
amazing.
cool thing to do, and it was a small brand activation, but it let them assess the market and see where they could add value, and that led to, in year 2, them coming back as our title partner during the midst of a pandemic, which, one, showcased that they were serious about this, and 2, showed that they would support a brand that had given them a value within the industry and sort of brought them in an authentic way. And I think that's super, super important. And I'd say the same with Verizon as well. We've been after a partner in the telecom space for the last 5 years. Anyone from their companies could relentlessly tell you how much we've been picking up the phone and getting on conversations with them. But there always has to be a fit and a match. And that came naturally for us last year with our 2 mobile awards in Esports Mobile Game of the Year and Esports Mobile Player. And suddenly, you could pick who you wanted to work with, because every one of those brands suddenly had the right fit in their heads as to how they could activate with the awards and how they could engage in a way that would fit with their brand and wouldn't be them just doing a brand grab. Unfortunately, Mark was someone that actually picked up a fair amount of our trophies when he was over at Intel, and made his pursuits known very early on, and wants to do things for the right reasons. So obviously, amid the pandemic, it was more difficult. It was technology driven, it was CGI based, and it was showcasing things in that way. But this year, already planning out some really cool ways to activate the campaign and bring more fan experience to those that aren't able to be with us because of the global travel restrictions and so on, but can still celebrate the awards and what it means to everyone.
Yeah, Mark was very quick to show us his mantelpiece with all his awards. Don't you worry. He made sure to let us know that he won those.
Every meeting we have.
he just brings them. Oh, hey guys, yeah, I brought these. I love it. That's great. I mean, I'll go around as well. I think one other question that we have here is, what are the most important things you can deliver on as a brand in esports? Greg, what are your thoughts on that?
So if you're a brand that's coming into esports, I think it is kind of interesting, though, as Mike was saying, that certain brands have an evolution as to how they approach it. You can tell where a brand is in their evolution based on if they have a full-time person on staff that's actually at the brand running esports, similar to Mark at Verizon and a few others, versus someone who's at the agency who's kind of scoping it out. So if you have someone who's in the brand itself running esports and all of the investments in there, they're very obviously going to be very serious with it, and they are into a cycle now. So it's not going to be into a dip our toes in on a one-time event, but that individual is planning on an annual basis, and several years out, how the campaign will evolve and how they reach people. And so I think that from a brand perspective, there's so much coming at the younger demographics as far as the 18 to 24 and 34-year-olds, as far as messaging that they receive, that you might do something at an ESL or do something at a DreamHack and you think it's great, but very rarely will it be recalled. And so I think that it's that consistency, staying at it, and that brand manager or sponsorship manager, whoever it may be, constantly working on it over time is really how you start to make hay as a brand within this space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've talked about demographic a few times on the summits before, because there is this kind of the demographic now is a lot younger, the audience as well. They're very aspirational, and a lot are competing at such a young age as well, because you can in some games and some titles. But the mobile thing as well, we've talked about. I think that that's definitely opened up a whole new world. Obviously, with the restrictions of COVID over the last year, people have been kind of almost forced to play things which aren't, land-based, which are kind of online, and it opens up the mobile market massively. So I'm looking forward to seeing when everything starts to come back again, how that's going to impact things as well. But I'll come over to you, Nicola, as well. Your thoughts on, the most important things you can deliver on as a brand in esports. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I agree with Greg that consistency is important. I would say it's often a scary barrier to entry for brands still, which is crazy to me, because everybody's playing games, everybody's at home, everybody's interacting in a digital world. So the fact that there's any barrier to entry when it comes to sponsoring esports is nuts. But let's assume that there is. I think that you can start off slow, sporadic, see what works. I've seen some really good individual streamer sponsorships and partnerships that have been great. I've seen some brands that are quite obviously testing the market with a few smaller activations. Hopefully it lends itself to something more consistent, but that's good in the early days. Really, I mean, I think it's all about your choice of vehicle, right? Be that your choice of esports or your choice of fan audience. It's the most important decision that you'll make, because it depends on the values of your company. It depends on what your brand looks, sounds like. Are you a much more kind of serious brand that needs to be among, storied sports brands in a very structured environment in a tournament? Or are you like, I've noticed, for example, that Tampax has been doing a couple of things here and there with female streamers. Obviously, as a female in esports, you can't imagine how excited that makes me. But I do think that there is room for some irreverence, right? You've just got to choose your vehicle, and be that an individual streamer that's known for that kind of brand or something else. I think it's all about making the right choices right out of the gate.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. Really, I think. Making the right choices, and I think, I guess from Dan, from your perspective as well as working at Guild Esports, and working with the talent as you do. I mean, with the brand and the people that you're working with, and the players and the creators as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on what you're trying to deliver for them as well? Both as them as talents and as to their fan base as well, their communities. What are you trying to employ at Guild to kind of make that as successful as possible?
We're trying to add value, essentially, and come together. And I know everyone uses it in a term, and a lot of people do use it, but like professionalize the industry more in the way it does do things. But it is built from the top, essentially, of a great management team. I honestly have an incredible team of directors that I get to collaborate with that are true experts and superheroes in their individual fields, that come together as a great team to be able to work together. And we all have the best interests at heart. And when we work with our creators, that's also another thing. We're not coming in to go, hey, we're going to change the way you do things as a creator, which some creators, think on the offset when an esports organization reaches out to them. Oh, have I got to change this now? Does that make me a pro player now? There's almost that element of it. It's no, we don't want you to change what you're doing. We want to help support what you're doing and give you more access and help you grow even further. And that's what we're doing with some of our creators now. And we are creating even more content for their audiences and things that they want to do further, whether that is, doing IRLs, at events in the future and things like that, and just giving them more access to a wider community. And we also, I'm a big fan of this, and this word, it's a bit of a buzzword, but cross-pollination is a huge one for me. And cross-pollinating content, I think for a long time, we've always seen esports sort of fall into its divisions. And a lot of teams, you see that, where it's just, that team has a Counter-Strike team, it has a LoL team, and they've never even met before. I've worked at teams where that's happened. And what we want to do is, and it is truly authentic, and it's so great to see, but we see that support when we sign somebody new. We don't even have to say it. The players are on there. Welcome to the Guild Gang. Welcome to the Guild Gang. And they truly are like working together. We ran Super Stream Sunday, which I called the Glasto of Guild recently, where we brought together, loads of content creators, loads of our pro players, and we had them all playing together with influencers as well from the outside, and just really bringing together all that mix. And we just got such great feedback on it from them, and they really do enjoy being part of that, and it's refreshing for them. So we're just trying to really just grow it and bring as much value and entertainment as well to the audiences.
Yeah, teamwork does indeed make the dream work. As they all say, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it really is about that. It's collaboration's been a huge thing over the course of the last year as well. So, talent working together, players working together, that environment where everyone's kind of benefiting from each other, working together and growing, I think is absolutely brilliant. I think it's spot on there. Absolutely. I mean, Mike, your thoughts as well on the most important things you can deliver on as a brand in esports from your perspective, being at the Esports Awards.
It's a good question. I was quite enjoying listening to Dan and his philosophy around things as well, because there's a lot of what we see in the industry as well when we're looking at team of the year and organization of the year. Is actually team is sort of that individual and very focused look at one team, their performance, their content, and all the different attributes. But organization is how your organization cross pollinates, as was said. So I thought that was pretty spot on. But I think for ourselves, obviously, it's the values and vision that we sort of bestow, and I guess we're in that very lucky position that when someone says they want to buy esports, we pretty much cover the whole of the industry, which is what everyone sells on from a numbers perspective, because we have awards that pretty much cater to every different facet of the industry, be it community, industry, pro, on a talent, or even creative now that we're sort of looking at, and obviously foraying into mobile as well. So I think for us, we're a very safe brand in a lot of ways. So it's a good launch pad for different companies wanting to come into the industry, dip their toes, and sort of understand how the ecosystem works, because they come on this year-long journey with us where we have our different spotlight shows, our Play of the Month competition, and sort of different forms of content that then culminates in this big tentpole engagement ceremony that sort of trends worldwide. And you actually get to go and meet all of those teams, all of the different brands and organizations at the awards on a typical year. I will caveat on that side. So I think for us, it's obviously delivering on a lot of those promises on our side. But I think it's definitely sort of more suited towards the teams at this stage, because there was almost this Hunger Games-esque style format with all of the teams where you had 5 or 6 different franchise leagues pop up at the same time, with everyone launching different teams and brands and organizations that were all vying for the same audience's eyeballs and their sort of fandom and fanship, where teams like TSM and such have been around for years and have been the staple, and a Team Liquid and so on, and all of a sudden you are being encouraged to support geo-regionalized teams as well as being able to support sort of different efforts across different titles, and now we're sort of coming out on the other side, which is, what do you stand for? Are you an esports enthusiast and you really want to see results across titles? Are you a casual gamer who wants to be able to watch some of your favorite creators and players on stream? Or are you an influencer, a lifestyle sort of gamer in which you want to see the latest merch drops? You want to see all the different culture and behind the scenes bits? And I think actually being able to cater to all of those 3 different facets is what makes you unique and special, but also what's going to give you that value long term that you can pass on and attribute back to sponsors in the form of things like owned content, where you're not just putting them into your content and saying presented by or in association with. You're actually saying, on our platform, we're going to develop something that's going to be named by you. It's a segment. It's the State Farm Analyst Desk. It's things like that that sort of come in and play in the right space, but living on the core values that you've said about when you've obviously sold Deal, and selling sort of that piece of it that works within your ecosystem but builds in them as a stable platform.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think you're up. Just stability, a stable platform. I mean, the Esports Awards has been. You're right. You worked with some amazing people and teams, and over the course of the last, I think 5-6 years now. I think the Esports Awards has been going for now. So, speaking of people that we've worked with in the past, great questions coming from a previous guest of ours on the summit, Mobile Matt. What a legend. Has got a great question actually that's come in. What are some recent innovations in brand marketing that you expect to see more of in 2021 and beyond? I'd love to get all your thoughts on this. Greg, I'll kick off with you. Anything that sticks out for you that's been a real innovation that you think was a real kind of stepping stone into what we're going to see more of in the future?
Well, I think that we have skipped a year of events. And so there has been technology being developed in the background that we're finally going to see again once we're all able to assemble. And I think that, first and foremost, certainly from our telecom partners, the 5G networks and what they're capable of doing. And, marry that with some AR and VR, and you're going to have some very interesting brand activations right there. The other thing that's starting to boom right now, and I know this is going to be something, and if it's not, I'm sure Ashford will start it after this, is NFTs, right? I mean, the idea of we're in a physical location together, have something that's collectible. And I've not had a conversation with Mike about this, but I think Mike should do this, is to say, look, we're here together. This is an only one-time event, and here's proof that we've got this, and it's on a digital form, and we can continue to showcase it over time. So I think brands are going to start to push into some of the physical activations more once we're able to assemble, and I think they're going to be just light years ahead of where we were just in the previous 2019 before everything started to fall apart.
It's funny that you say that, Greg. more to come in this space over the next few months. But actually, it's an exciting premise because I think there's a lot of gimmicks attached to it that'll sort of bottom out over the next sort of couple of years, probably at this stage. But actually, when I used to play League of Legends, and I was naively thinking I was going to be a pro when I got to sort of the top 1% of players, we went and played at Insomnia Gaming Festival, and we ended up winning the intermediate tournament, and we basically got given a digital trophy. And I was outraged that we weren't even being given a physical trophy. But actually, like, that digital trophy still lives on that account. Whereas if they'd given me a little plastic trophy at that point and my participation award, I would have binned it. So it's one of those things where you can collect and you can create, and you can also sort of share those moments. So I think the right collaborations and the right use does create sort of valuable moments within.
Yeah, I mean, Nicola, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well on innovations and things that you've seen. Obviously, you've been in the industry for a long time now. What you think that's happened in the course of the last year that you're hoping to see more of in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last year taught us a lot about building communities that can sustain not physically being together. Right? Like, for example, the most attended concert of all time happened in Fortnite. Right? The most physically attended, the most eyeballs at one time enjoying one artist, performing, happened in the digital realm. And that, to me, really spells the way for the future. It's going to take us a long time to get back to rubbing shoulders at big concerts. And maybe this is the beginning of a pivot from that anyway, right? Like, why should I schlep all the way to the Hollywood Bowl or whatever when I can be just as connected, just as involved, and a part of a unique community, enjoying a moment with people from all over the globe. So I think we're going to see more and more. It really doesn't sound like rocket science, but we're going to see more and more digital activations, more and more kind of digital fashions, digital entertainments, stuff that I don't think we're going to see a rush back to physical events. It was interesting working in esports this year when it was the only game in town, right? When every single other sport shut down and we were the only ones sort of able to keep on going. And I think it taught us a lot. And I don't think we're going to see a snapback to the behavior prior to this, this blessed year. I think it's put us on a new path.
Yeah, it certainly has. I think, is it the Travis Scott thing you're referring to in the, I think it was the
I think so. I was desperately Googling it. Marshmallow, yeah.
Marshmallow,
yeah. I'm not cool enough to know anywhere near enough about either of those people, but I was present for both of those concerts. So
they were amazing. I think it was definitely Marshmallow. It was actually speaking live inside the game to players as well, which is just, it's genius and it's so out there and it's incredible, really. So
that's awesome.
I think so. And I think we'll see loads more of that. You're absolutely right. And speaking from experience as well, like the last year, virtual events and broadcasting from home, esports events and even TV shows and things, it's all, you can kind of do everything now from a home studio, and it's kind of like the norm now. It's just, everyone is used to it. So I think we'll see a lot more of that for sure. And I must ask you as well, Daniel, what your thoughts are as well on, from Guild's perspective as well. Is there any innovations that you've seen that you're like, oh, that's a very cool thing that we definitely want to see more of down the line?
Well, I mean, everybody's using data as much as possible, right, to steer them in the right direction. So there's a lot of that that's being steering people. From a digital perspective, just to echo on your thoughts of like the way things are being normalized. We started our own FIFA show, and with that, every guest that comes and joins the show right now is on a big Samsung screen right there as part of the set, and they just dial in for an hour and we pre-record, and then that goes out as an edit. So that's become the norm now, and people enjoy it and they watch it, and there's no change to it. But I mean, for quite a while, I was seeing things over the past few years of VR headsets and things like that, and we see a lot of AR as well introduced into things. So I think we will see a lot more of that and a lot more personalization that people want to get to be able to connect with that creator even further. We've talked about the NFTs. Obviously, we don't know which way that's going yet, but obviously cryptocurrency is having its rise, and young people are heavily involved in that as well. So there is a big movement there. But I did read a really good article this morning that brought a nice smile to my face, and seeing that some brands are going to start returning back to some older marketing methods of like handwritten letters is going to be a thing that's going to start to
Really?
and things like that. Yeah. So I thought that was quite interesting because it does go through these cycles where sometimes when we get too digital heavy, sometimes we return back to the things that, you know, were tangible and we missed. And maybe Mike will one day hope that he did get that, you know, physical award to sit next to his ones there on the back.
I wish.
Mike's going to send a thank you note to everyone who watches the Esports Awards.
Absolutely. Well,
Thank you note.
we've actually, it's funny, Danny, you say that because we've been already planning out wax stamped sealed envelopes for all the finalists this year to let them know. And we coined this back with a Koyo store back in the end of 2018, start of 2019, if we're talking around sort of creating value, is we brought them on as a sponsor, and they're all about how you turn the digital into the physical and sort of blur the two realities. So actually for us, we sort of looked at what is that representation within the awards, and we settled on these challenger coins that basically turned up in the post and informed you're a finalist, and they were just a small token of gratitude and recognition for your efforts in a year. And they just took, because suddenly everyone had something that was pretty dexterous in their hands that was showing them the significance of what they've achieved. And we have 50 people that sit on the panel now that sit and go through every nomination, go through the process, and spend hundreds of hours sort of getting to these decisions. And it all sort of culminates in that moment. And since then, we've worked with Koyo since that. They've renewed every single year, and we work on like a VIP box that goes out with a different theme. 2019's was travel. 2020's was certainly not. It was stay at home, and had like a big fluffy dressing gown and different bits and pieces in, which it's such a basic concept, but everyone went mad for it. They loved it, and Koyo very smartly put their logo onto it, and now they still get a good amount of viewership on them, and we always get people tagging when they see them on streams or on Instagram and so on. So I do agree, and I think that there's almost two blends to it, because you've got these hyper advanced broadcasts. For us last year, we did everything in the Unreal Engine in CGI with our host EFS Shocks to Portrait over in Berlin, our CGI team in Ohio, and our broadcast team in Arlington, Texas, with us sat in the UK crossing our fingers between London and Manchester. So sort of super remote, all over the place with different broadcast formats and forms there, for 3 hours sleep and a lot of cans of Monster later, sort of building it. But also you've got the back to basics of we make good content in esports and gaming. We build brilliant things that people want to watch. And I think even with this summit, if you look at the level of production that goes into this as an event that's B2B focused, if you rewound before the pandemic, we would all be sat here on Zoom or even worse, Skype. Yeah, we're all sat here with pretty polished setups, backdrops, the cat food's all hidden in the backgrounds, and we're all sort of presenting in a way that would be acceptable on television. I mean, they get to this level now. So I think it's back to basics, but esports does it with a level of polish.
It does. I love how medieval you got with the wax stamps. I love that. That's great. That's
all over it. TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok.
Right? Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. One last question, actually, guys. Gigi reckons a couple of, or Recons had a couple of questions in. One is just regarding physical events. Is it not incredibly important for new brands entering the space to witness and experience the passion of esports fans to see how real this industry is? I see Dan nodding there. What are your thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, because at the moment you tell brands about it like it's an urban myth, you know, and you try to tell them about the time you were in Madrid and there was, 8,000 fans there screaming like you've never heard before. If you've ever experienced a French audience and they're doing the jumping the way the Man City fans do it in the stands and all of this, and it's just every event has its own different type. A League of Legends, fan base is completely different to the COD, and you've really got to experience it. And I'll never forget my first time, and that's one that every brand that I've ever seen walk through the door, and they just you see their eyes open up and like, oh my God, you were right about this. So it's massively important for brands to go and experience a live event. Absolutely. And we have a lot of people that are really, really excited and can't wait to do that for the first time as well with us. And for us to see our teams perform at a live event, because some of them are killing it right now. So to see them go and lift a trophy on stage as well. So we haven't experienced that. So
Fortnite as well. You guys are kicking butt, and Rocket League's amazing. I mean, Nicola, obviously working with Riot for such a long time, and other great people you work with. You've been to these live events, I'm sure, and how imperative is it to get to these things and experience the fans and that kind of live environment?
I mean, it's definitely a game changer, right? Like, I've been at events all over the world, and there's, that intake of breath when you walk into like a sports stadium. It's really, really visceral. And you do see kind of the CMOs who've been brought there by their kids or by their grandkids in some instances, and that's the tipping point, right? That's when they know to invest because they can see it, it's tangible, they can understand it. People in a stadium, that's 101. I think it's okay to challenge them as well, though. Like, if they're incapable of understanding the fact that millions of people are tuning in to see something unless they can physically see it, then they need to stretch their imaginations a bit, like however many big events that we do in stadiums, just imagine if physically all of the people watching, like League of Legends for their finals had 40 million, 30, however many millions watching finals. If all of those people were physically in front of you, that would be physically impossible. So I think that brands, and maybe the last year has helped educate them a little bit, but they need to understand that this obviously is bigger than the facade of like a cheering stadium or a football chant or like, a proposal on stage. Like, however cool these things are, it's the tiniest bit of the iceberg that you can see poking out of the water. With that said, I mean, I agree with Danny. I think like taking somebody to an event is the quickest way that I know to get them to buy in. I'm just hoping that over the last year, people have expanded their minds a little.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that works with the Riots and the Worlds and a lot of these huge brands that garner the massive numbers week in, week out, and just have that consistency and the concurrence that work. I think for us, as sort of a smaller, say, challenger brand in the space who's really tried to build an identity and a platform, it was a really big thing for us back in 2019. We came off 3 years of being in London and sort of certain perceptions, certain connotations, was sort of building this out and trying to make it truly global. That we went over to America, and in 2019 Arlington said, we want you here, we want you at the Esports Stadium Arlington, we want you at the first sort of purpose-built facility for esports. And we had so much convincing to do whenever we went stateside that this was real, it mattered, it was tangible, all these influencers were going to show up. And Greg, to bring you into it as well, Greg was someone that was really good at selling for us in 2019 and persuading the brands that this existed. But I think even for Greg, he only got it when we got to that live event and you saw the stage and you saw all the dressage and the branding and all the influencers there. And at that point, it was great because you had every CMO from every company in America, it felt like, in the room. But it was almost too late for us because the event was halfway over and we're into a new cycle at that stage. But it's one of those where so many people made relationships. I know so many talent that got agents off the back of that show, and so many brands who did business on the back of it. So for us, it was almost like a breakthrough. And I'll be very honest, if we didn't have that show in person back in 2019, I'm not sure we'd still be standing here after the pandemic in 2021 ready to go again. So I completely share the numbers for League of Legends and some of these titles is staggering. And for me, I'm still coming to terms with the fact that we did just over 15 million unique live viewership on our show as well this year, at a time when the likes of the Oscars and the Grammys and people are starting to regress a little bit because they didn't have digital strategies and they didn't use co-streams and different syndicated broadcasts across the globe and things that we've just had to do to fight to remain relevant against these hyper numbers that everyone else can output. And I think that's been the true casualty is, for brands like Guild that are putting out some incredible content online, I can't wait to see, Danny, what you do in person, because there's a whole nother side to this where esports started getting into the rhythm of tailgates, watch parties, facilities, headquarters, office visits, viewings, and shops and pop-ups, alongside the fact that you're competing, you're going to all of these tournaments. And that's the bit of identity that probably got a little bit skewed and lost with all the noise. I think esports has done a fantastic job of sort of bridging that. But I think they're the bits that do sometimes give you that shock moment of just how real this is at the moment.
Yeah, I think that at every brand, the majority of cases, there is one decision maker, and the data is extremely important for everyone up in that decision chain, up to that decision maker, because it gives them the data is saying, this is why we're doing this. This is why it's a good idea. This is something we can stand on. But it's that final decision maker who has to have that experience, that touch and feel, something that's familiar to them. And in a lot of the cases, it is going and seeing the passion and the energy that's there, and they finally understand it because it's something that they're used to, whether it be a concert, or music that they love, or a traditional sports team that they're used to. They finally get it. But I think it's really important too, and this is why Mike and his team were so successful after 2019. Is there's a level of trust, especially that with that decision maker, that needs to be built up because they are responsible. They are the guardians of that brand and the several 100,000 employees of that brand, and they need to know that Mike Ashford and his team, or whomever it may be, is going to protect us. They're going to do right by us. And so I think that experience, having it, whether it be a dinner or a cocktail or just seeing Mike and his team work, is really important, that final decision maker. And not much can be said for that. That is exactly how a final decision gets done. And then once they see it, they're in forever.
Absolutely. And thank you guys all so much. We've run over, but great conversation. Thank you so much all for sharing. It's been a lot of fun. Have you guys I hope you have a good time as well. It's been great.
It's been fun.
I'm going to thank everybody now who's joined us for this evening's conversation panel. A huge shout out to everyone from Mark Chang, Director of Gaming and Esports at Verizon, to Greg Skasko, CEO at Abacus 3, we just heard from, and Nicola Piggott, founder and co-CEO of the Story Mob, Mike Ashford, Managing Director, Esports Awards, Daniel Lopez, Director of Brand and Content, Guild Esports, Dan Ciccone, founder and CEO of Stacked Entertainment, Tricia Sugita, CEO of FlyQuest Sports, and Johnny Kutnowski, Director of Product Management at Blinkfire Analytics Inc. Thank you guys all so much. Right, it's almost time for the Zoom networking session. We have our next Esports Leadership Summit coming up in May to celebrate women in esports. So be sure to look out for the emails and join the Esports Leadership Series LinkedIn group. Thank you so much again for joining us and hanging out this evening. Thank you for your questions as well. It's been so much fun. I've loved this. And make sure to join us during the networking session on the Zoom link in the YouTube bio section and comments right now. I've been Adam Savage. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful evening and here's to a great year in esports. We'll see you soon.